I'm delighted to be joined by Elliot and Owen. We have just witnessed Liam Smith stopping Chris Eubank Jr. inside 4 rounds. This is an immediate reaction video. Gents, we all picked Eubank to win. So this is an upset. I think it's important that we have these nights in the sport, otherwise it would get even more boring. But yeah, looking for your immediate reaction to that, Elliot Grigg.
I'm stunned, mate. I am legitimately stunned at that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like you said, we had us guys predicting Eubank Junior win. Most of us were predicting it on points. I think I would have also accepted a kind of late stoppage as a prediction. No one, to my mind, had Smith winning by a KO, especially not that early. And I think, yeah, I mean, I look at it and I think mostly as well, even Smith himself had said, Eubank's been in with the guys he's had sort of chin tests in the past that seems to have come through them. Smith moving up in weight, Eubank sort of being more comfortable at that weight. I just can't get my get my head around it, mate. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a hell of an uppercut. Eubank didn't know where he was, frankly. But I'm stunned. Stunned. Honestly, didn't see that. Did not see that fall. Did not see that coming. The fall coming in any which way.
No, I think we were all fairly speechless for a good few minutes before we came onto this call. Going to dive into it a bit deeper, but yeah, Owen, what's going through your mind right now?
I pretty much concur with everything Elliot said there. I thought it was close. I thought it was a genuine 50-50 fight. Was happy to accept either opinion, whether he thought Smith was going to win or Eubank was going to win. I did think Eubank would be too good for him. I think the third round sort of not necessarily showed that, but after the third round, I thought this is the way the fight's going to go. And then Liam Smith decided to produce one of the most perfectly timed punches, probably the most perfectly timed punch of his career to date, and probably the most perfect punch he will ever land. And boxing is one of those sports where I'm happy to be proved wrong, and what a way to do it tonight. Yeah, words are hard to come by to describe that, but Liam Smith, that was a punch from the gods, really. Like I say, Eubank didn't have a clue where he was.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where if it had been a regular fight, the fight would have been stopped when Eubank got up, because it wasn't. I mean, it should have been stopped in my opinion, but because of the size of the event, it wasn't stopped because he did not look like in a fit state to continue and was definitely not going to recover in time. On the fight itself, what did you? I'm just interested to see what you guys thought up until the stoppage. Obviously, it was scheduled for 12 rounds, stopped in the fourth. But what did you like rounds 1 to 3? What did you guys see? And if I had said to you at the end of round 3, what do you think is going to happen in this fight? What would you have said? Owen, going to go back to you on this one.
I thought the first round was tight. I thought Eubank landed more, but Smith probably landed the better shots, the cleaner shots. But that was a bit of a toss up. But personally, I had it 3-0 Eubank. I thought when we were at the end of the third, I thought Eubank had found his range. He was picking him off with shots, and it turns out it looks like Liam Smith was just sort of, it was almost like feeling him out, seeing what Eubank's going to bring. Not necessarily an onslaught, but when he does sort of unload, Eubank himself landed there was 2 or 3 uppercuts, which were brilliant. Sort of check lead hooks were catching Smith, and I thought I had Eubank points. I thought it was going to be quite a comfortable night for Eubank. It was at that point I didn't really see how Smith was going to stop him. Eubank was moving quite well. The only sort of times he really got caught were when Eubank himself dived in or allowed Smith to come to him. I thought the first 3 rounds were fighting Eubank's fight. And then in the fourth round, obviously Eubank trying to dance around in the corner probably caused his own demise. But yeah, I thought at the end of the third, I thought we were on for a fairly comfortable night for Eubank.
And Elliot, same. What are your thoughts?
I think I'm still gathering to me.
I feel like Smith hit me with that uppercut, let alone Eubank. Well, I think no, I agree with Owen. I think like the first round was tight, really. I mean, a lot of people gave it to Smith. I probably gave it to Smith as well. Just I don't think there was too much in it. But I actually thought the pattern of the fight was coming second and third round. I thought Eubank sort of growing into it. Like you said, check hooks were landing. Didn't think he was putting too much into them, to be fair, but they were landing. A couple of uppercuts as well seemed to get through. And I don't know, I've always thought like Smith's boxing style obviously is effective, don't get me wrong, but it looks quite bizarre. And when like his footwear, like where he sort of comes in and comes out, it almost looks it doesn't look smooth, even though it obviously must be. It kind of looks like you're kind of beginning boxing training and someone's going, here's your lines, go like this. But he was kind of like, Eubank in the corner, like you said, was kind of doing the things that he tends to do, dropping his hands, showboating a little. And yeah, Smith just stuck it on him. Obviously, fair play to him. He took his moment and landed. But I think the pattern of the fight for me was kind of looking good for Eubank UD. Frankly, after the second and third, I thought this is coming in. I could see it maybe going a kind of like close, maybe kind of like an 8-4, maybe, or like maybe even a 7-5 kind of fight. But I sort of looked like Eubank was going to sort of stretch it on. But yeah, obviously he didn't. So fair play to Smith.
Yeah, absolutely. What went wrong for Eubank tonight? There were some people saying that he looked a bit gaunt at the weigh-in. Maybe he's kind of not had a very successful weight cut. Did he take Liam? He was speaking about coming in at 50% for this fight. Without taking anything away from Liam Smith, what do you think might have gone wrong for Eubank tonight? Elliot, going to go back to you.
I think it's all that stuff that Eubank was saying about 50% this, and I could be 5% of this to beat you, and I can eat KFC, whatever. That goes out the window, mate. If you lose, like if you win, it looks great. But when you get sparked up by someone who's a smaller weight than you in the fourth round, people will be sitting there going, "Fucking hell, mate, get up to 80-90% then. Don't give me no 50% shit. You've been sparked out." I think he did look a little gaunt, yeah, but I don't think. The weight he's at. Obviously, he's fought there before. I don't actually think that's much of an excuse, to be honest. I think he at the weight. I think it was a fair weight for the two guys, judging by their sort of natural physiques and their natural statures. You can't really expect Smith to go much higher than that, and I don't think you obviously want Eubank to go lower than that. So, to be honest with you, I think it was a fair fight. I think he underestimated Smith, frankly, coming into this. I know they obviously sparred a long time ago, when people were sort of dismissive of that, and I'm dismissive of that as well, to be honest, when those sparring sessions happened so long ago. But I think he just frankly underestimated him. I think you look at the middleweight rankings, you look at where Eubank is. This is a massive upset, like sort of second WBO, like fifth Ring Magazine rankings at the weight. Smith nowhere to be seen, obviously, because he's a smaller fighter. And you sit there and go, yeah, this is a huge upset. And I think he just kind of, whether it's the Roy Jones thing, and he's kind of trying to, again, people have said before, maybe he's trying to turn himself into a kind of a boxer that he isn't necessarily. Maybe that played a part in it as well. But when you're sitting in the corner like that and you're kind of like dropping your hands down and trying to almost weave around with just kind of your head, these things happen, frankly. And I just think his whole kind of attitude, approach, demeanor needs re-looking at, definitely. But I don't think I'm not going to put anything on the weight, frankly.
No, I think another thing I didn't mention is this Eubank Jr. Roy Jones link up working. I think arguably Eubank looked better before he started training with Roy Jones, and I would be interested to see who is in Eubank's corner for his next fight. Owen, what do you think went wrong for Eubank Jr. tonight?
Well, I think what went, to sort of sum it up, what went wrong is looking at what went right as well. I think in the third round, what Eubank done there was perfect, and that was how he had to fight 12 rounds. Fighting 12 rounds like that on essentially off the back foot, even though he was going towards Smith at times, it's a hard task. You need serious stamina to do that. So I think when he's backing up into the corner, he's almost going into the trenches with Liam Smith. I mean, Elliot touched on it. Smith has got a very weird style. It's sort of just hands up, head down, walking towards his opponent. Doesn't use too much footwork in a sense. And I think when he's in the corner, he's playing straight into Smith's hands, and that's how it played out. Trying to duck and dive with just his head against Smith, who's got a good engine, Smith, and he was throwing everything at him. One or two shots are going to land, no matter how good you are. Even if you're Roy Jones, you're just moving with literally just your head and nothing else. One or two is going to catch you. And like Liam Smith said, people with better chins have been knocked out. All it takes is that one punch on the button, and that's what he got with that uppercut. So I think Eubank had to try and stay out of the corners for 12 rounds, which is probably an impossible task because at some point you're going to gas to an extent where you need to take a breather. So I think where he played into Liam Smith's hands and fought the Liam Smith fight was ultimately his demise.
Yeah. I'm still speechless, to be honest.
I was going to say, do we make anything out of because I think I do actually think that Eubank fundamentally seems like a good bloke, and frankly, like seems like a really personal guy, and he's actually over the last kind of year has come out with a lot of credit PR wise, as being a sort of genuine bloke, that's sort of amusing, but also kind of erudite and thoughtful. But do we make anything really out of the Blackwell incident? I'm not sure like whether these things happen where like you kind of hurt someone in that way and then you kind of change your general approach. I mean, I look at Eubank now, and early Eubank would just like spear uppercuts into people left and right. He would have an unbelievable engine, and he had like a real spite. And I just don't think in a way that he has that spite and anymore. And I'm not saying necessarily like that's a bad thing in some ways, because I've looked at the harm that it did, but I just don't. And it may not have played, obviously the fight didn't really go long enough to play that out today, but in previous fights as well we've seen, it doesn't seem to have that same I suppose nastiness that he had earlier on in his career.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think of that, whether that's a true reflection or whether you think that it just hasn't been borne out in the fights that he's had.
It's interesting.
I do think if you look at it, boxing math never normally actually works out. When you look at it, I was basing my predictions off the way the both Leon Williams fights. They both fought him. Eubank was much more comfortable in there, came out of it with flying colours. When it comes to Eubank's chin, I said either way this fight ends, it would only be on points. You look at George Groves, couldn't stop Chris Eubank Jr. And George Groves, to his credit, which he doesn't get enough, is George Groves was a big puncher. There's been loads and loads of fighters in the past who have gone in and said how hard he actually punches. So when you look at little factors like that, it doesn't add up. But that's where I sort of agree with what Elliot said, and the fact of you watch Eubank Jr. is the best fighter you'll ever see on the pads. Obviously, that doesn't always correlate to an in-ring performance, but like you say, if you watch him, those uppercuts, he'd just throw 5 or 6 in certain fights. Like the Nick Blackwell performance, got him on the ropes, and it was just spiteful, punch after punch after punch, and he just doesn't seem to have that snap anymore. Obviously, his jab's still there. You're never going to lose your jab, but most of his other shots, the snap just didn't seem to be there.
Yeah.
Did you put that down, Stotty, to something physical or something mental?
I think that if you look at Eubank's record, he's had too many fights where he should have won by stoppage and he's won by points. Mm-hmm. James DeGale, Marcus Morrison, Liam Williams, he should have won all of those fights by stoppage, and that's not happened. He's a massive puncher, and we've seen that earlier in his career. Look at the Avni Yildirim knockout as well. I know that was after the Blackwell fight, to be fair. Don't know. It's a tricky one, but it's a really tricky one. It's an interesting character to unravel. Gonna nearly leave it there, gents. Just got one question for both of you. I think it's been pretty much confirmed that there is a rematch clause. We're being told there's a possibility it could happen at Anfield, which I know Elliot Grigg will want ringside tickets for. One question is, does the rematch? Yeah, not going to ask. Yeah, does the rematch happen? That's the only question. I think obviously Eubank might choose to not take the rematch and have some sort of comeback fights before kind of trying to reinvent himself at the end of the year. Obviously, it's a big money fight. It's another big pay-per-view fight. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that, Elliot Grigg?
Yeah, I think it happens, mate. Yeah, for the simple reason that
I think it has to happen. Like if Eubank doesn't do it, then the perception will be obviously you're essentially running from someone smaller than you. And I think Liam Smith 34 now. Like so Eubank was going to go on the comeback trail and wait till Smith hit like 35, 36. That's no good to anyone either. So frankly, I think it has to happen. Smith seems keen for it. I just don't think there's anywhere else for Eubank to go. Frankly, so yeah, I think it happens. If and when it does happen, Do I see the same outcome? I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I didn't see the outcome tonight, so I can't sit there and go, yeah, I don't think Liam Smith will stop him again. Perfectly, it's been shown that he can. So yeah, I think it has to happen, mate. I think it has to happen. I think it will happen.
Tricky one. Owen, final words with you. Will the rematch happen?
I agree on one point and disagree on another point with Elliot. I think it will happen, and I know the clause is there, but for me, that was a definitive outcome. It will happen, but I don't think it should. It's a fourth round knockout. Eubank didn't even know where he was. For me, I'd watch it, but I don't really see the need for a rematch. I think that was quite a unanimous verdict in a sense. Smith stopped him brutally, so I think it will happen. I can't see it being Anfield. We've seen Anfield talked about as a venue so many times, and it's yet to happen. But yeah, personally, it's not the fight I'd want to see, but I think we will see it.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. All right, gents, going to leave it at that. I'm sure we could go on for a little while, but yeah, we're going to leave it at that. Yeah, Liam Smith has stopped Chris Eubank Jr. in the fourth round in what is a massive upset, and yeah, not a bad way to get us going in 2023. Gents, thank you for joining me. We'll catch you up with you soon. Okay, take care.
Thank you, mate. Thank you guys for watching.